I love music. I've been singing and I've been playing guitar for about 5 years now, and I just recently got into drums.
I watch soccer with my family. It's a huge part of what we do together.
A mí me gusta dibujar como una ciudad así con casitas.
I sometimes try to play, which I'm horrible at, but I try. Favorite movie, Titanic.
I love music, but I think my biggest passion is film. I love telling stories, and I'm going to pursue film in college next year.
I think I would like to help people. Maybe like a psychologist or something like that. I like talking to people and helping and trying to fix them.
Cuando esté más grande, a mí me gustaría dibujar todavía.
I'll be going to school at Emerson College next year, where I'll be pursuing film. It's right in Boston, it's right on the Common, and I'm so excited because Boston is a great city. It's beautiful, it's historic, and there are so many other college kids there. Citizenship. I don't really think it would be an issue.
Mi nombre es Diego, yo soy ilegal aquí en este lugar.
My name is Lola. I'm an immigrant, and my status stops me from achieving most of my dreams.
Si yo digo que yo no tengo papeles, yo no sé qué pasaría, pueden llamar a la inmigración y yo me puedo ir de aquí.
That's the scariest thing in your life. You know, you go home and you pray that something won't happen to your dad or your mom.
Matt, Lola, and Diego. 3 ordinary teens growing up in Massachusetts. Separated by only a few miles, they are divided by secrecy, hate, and misunderstanding. All believe their home is the United States, but some individuals feel otherwise.
I can't own a house, I can't own a business or anything that has to do anything with papers. So this will never be my home. And that hurts.
My name is Matt. I'm from Andover, Massachusetts. It's about 20 minutes north of Boston. You know, it's a very affluent town, and I'm very lucky to have grown up in it. But as privileged as I am to live in Andover, and as privileged as Andover is to be the town that it is, there are some towns in the area who don't necessarily have the same opportunities that Andover does.
Mexico is made up of small, poor towns, villages. My village, I guess you can call it, is really poor. No roads. Everything was stone and dirt, and it's horrible. The school is this little tiny little house, probably 2 or 3 rooms. The only way you can get from one place to another place was by walking, or in horses, or I guess you can say donkeys.
Mi día en Guatemala yo le pasaba con mi mamá y yo le pasaba bueno, pero la vida de nosotros en Guatemala es que uno trabaje en el campo, que uno agarre el asadón y uno empiece a trabajar con la gente ganando dinero, pero no ganamos suficiente dinero. Todo es muy escaso, no hay forma como vivir allá. Uno casi todos los días se mantiene sin dinero, uno desea algo pero no tiene la menor idea qué es lo que quiere porque no hay dinero y todo eso.
I came here when I was around 6. I was very young. All I remember is there was my dad and his 2 sisters and then my grandfather living in this around 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house. It wasn't anything special. They all had like this little like patch of land where they would farm, and it was like from dawn to around 7. And so I never saw them. So I was basically all by myself.
Both my parents worked when I was younger. I think my mom stopped working probably around the time my brother was born. So I don't know. I might have been 4 or 5 years old. But after that, they were around for a very long time. You know, they're always around, I guess. I mean, my mom's an angel, and she always has been. I played soccer, baseball, tried golf. That wasn't too good. But anyway, she drove me. You know, she paid for the lessons, and she encouraged me throughout the whole time.
Mi papá estaba con nosotros, pero él se vino aquí porque debía mucho con la gente por todos esos gastos que hacía por nosotros. Él compraba cosas, pero él no tenía suficiente dinero. Entonces, para comprar algo, él prestaba dinero.
My grandfather, it was his land, so we were working for him. He brought in all the money, basically. Whatever we earned, it was basically his house, his money. We all lived in his house, so if that week he didn't get anything, well, we would suffer. Because I guess my dad would earn his little side of the money, but it was all my grandfather's. But that all changed when I turned around 5. That's when my grandfather got killed.
Cuando él vino aquí, él empezó a trabajar y nos mandaba dinero, pero ese dinero que nos mandaba no era lo suficiente para vivir. Ese dinero se iba para la tienda porque uno quería algo en la tienda, no alcanzaba ese dinero, se iba rápido.
After his death, I guess his family got really mad. They wanted to take his land and claim it theirs when it was rightfully my dad's. So they forced my dad to give it up. When they forced my dad to give it up, we were in the streets. We were literally on the streets. So my dad said, I'll go to America just to get some money to maintain you guys.
When I was 6, I played with my friends a lot. I had a lot of neighbors that I would hang out with. And I used to have a swing set over there. We converted it into like a fire pit over the past few years, but we used to play in the swing set all the time.
Because there was a lot of us. There was 2 of his sisters, my mom, and me. And we didn't have anything at that point. So he left a couple months before we did. We didn't hear from him for like 2-3 months. And when we did, my mom was like, I can't stand out being here without you. I'm really scared. We don't have anything to survive in. So what my mom did is that she decided to come here.
Yo me vine aquí porque cuando el dinero no alcanzaba, yo le decía a mi papá, y mi papá me dijo, ven acá conmigo, aquí tenemos lo suficiente dinero para vivir, mientras tú vienes acá, nosotros mandamos traer a tu mamá.
I think the only thing I was worried about when I was 6 was I gonna have mac and cheese or chicken for dinner, you know? Personally, I like the mac and cheese. I was never a huge fan of the chicken nuggets, but whatever.
Lola, obligated by her parents, left Mexico at age 6. Diego, traveling alone, left at only age 12. They had both heard of the legendary opportunity available in the United States, but neither suspected the reality that awaited them.
Illegal immigration puts pressure on public schools and hospitals. It strains state and local budgets. And brings crime to our communities.
Diego, living in dire poverty, set out to reunite with his father in the United States, but was forced to leave the rest of his family in Guatemala.
El día cuando yo decidí de venirme, cuando yo estaba empacando, yo sentía una tristeza, yo sentía algo en el corazón.
His mother hired a guide, a coyote, to lead him on his journey through Guatemala, on to Mexico, and to the United States.
Me cambiaron el nombre, me dieron el nombre, me dieron la fecha del nacimiento, pero no era el correcto, era otro.
I don't remember the preparations. I try to forget that. The last thing I remember was my grandfather's funeral. And then I remember packing, but it wasn't like packing because you can't really take anything. I remember walking and then just being like, where are we going? She's like, shh, don't talk. And I'm only so little, so they don't want to tell me anything.
As Lola emigrated at the age of 6, she doesn't remember much of her journey. Diego, however, who crossed just a year ago, remembers his flight vividly. Since the quickest way to travel through Latin America is by train, Diego and his group soon made their way to the train station. His travel was anything but quick. For 15 straight hours, Diego, like many other migrants, sat perilously on top of the speeding cars.
Y tú te cuelgas contra el tren. Si te cuelgas bien, subes bien, y si no, pues te quedas tirado y el tren pasa sobre ti. O algunos se cuelgan bien y los demás los que no se han colgado porque hay demasiada gente que sube al tren. Entonces, para que ellos suben y si tú estás colgado allí, ellos te jalan y tú te caes.
After arriving safely from his train journey, Diego and his group traveled to La Sierra, a dangerous mountain range they would soon cross with 3 additional guides.
Siempre tienes que ver a la guía, que la guía va contigo. Pero si tú no mires a la guía, que la guía está ahí contigo, tú cuando te das cuenta, la guía iba a bajar y te quedas ahí.
Traveling towards the border, Diego's entire party piled into the back of a truck, a group of 10 lying on top of one another in the seating area to avoid being spotted by immigration officials.
I was in the back of a car. That's the one part I remember. I was in back of like a car, in the back of the trunk or something, and we were all there squished in this tiny little spot. and you can't breathe, you can't move. If you do, you hit the person back of you, in front of you. There's nothing. You don't eat, you don't drink. You're basically nothing there.
When Diego and his party arrived at the Rio Grande, his party inflated a river raft fit for 5 people. 11, including Diego, boarded. The raft soon broke, launching Diego and his companions into the dangers of the river.
El río estaba corriendo. Si tú no podías nadar, el río te llevaba, tú te morías. Entonces yo empecé a nadar y me metí entre el agua hasta abajo y ahí no tenía lo suficiente fuerza como para llevarnos. Y cruzamos el río y llegamos donde empieza el desierto.
After several guides confirmed that the coast was clear, Diego and his group sprinted continuously for 8 hours without rest, food, or water.
Cuando yo caminaba y descansábamos algo, yo siempre me recordaba de mi familia. Entonces a mí no me importaba nada. Yo lo que decía en mi corazón, yo decía que yo tengo que cumplir con mis decisiones, yo tengo que seguir adelante.
When Diego did eat, a truck would find his group to deliver food and water.
Si tú llegabas primero cerca de la comida, tú agarrabas lo suficiente para comer bien. Pero si tú llegabas de último, ya todos tus compañeros ya tenían agarrado la comida, tú te quedabas sin comida.
On one particular occasion, Diego was given a gallon of water and 2 apples to last a day and 2 nights. With 1 day left to the journey, the party arrived a distance outside Houston. Torrential rain was pouring down, soaking Diego's clothes and the few belongings he had brought with him. At one point, the coyote spotted immigration officials fast approaching. Hearing the coyote's keyword, aguas, Diego threw himself into the brush.
Y corrimos. Algunos se tiraron para el barranco, algunos se tiraron ahí entre el monte, yo no sé, y algunos se corrieron.
Immigration arrived, grabbing one woman who hadn't managed to hide in time. Immigration demanded to know how many were in her party and which coyote was guiding them. But following the coyote's previous instructions, the woman insisted that she was by herself.
Y lo empezaron a pegar. Y si tú no dices cuántos son, te vamos a empezar a pegar más. Entonces la mujer con el miedo dijo que eran los 24.
Thrown out of the way, the woman fell on top of Diego, still hiding in the brush.
Y gritó, y la inmigración llegó rápido y me dijo qué pasó. Y no quería decir nada, pero ya la otra inmigración ya estaba atrás de mí.
3 minutes passed like hours. Diego, assuming it was safe, moved from under the weight of the woman.
Y la inmigración vio que yo me moví. Y me agarró con un hierro, llevaban un hierro. Agarró ese hierro y me dio por detrás en la espalda a mí. Y yo grité porque eso me dolió demasiado.
This Border Patrol violence isn't something all Americans are necessarily aware of.
The men and women of our Border Patrol are doing a fine job in difficult circumstances. And over the past 5 years, they have apprehended and sent home about 6 million people.
Y me dijeron, levántate. Pero yo le dije, yo no me puedo levantar. Mi mano lo tienen amarrado. Trata la forma de cómo levantarte, pero levántate. Yo no me pude levantar porque yo tenía me tenía en la mano amarrado. Y yo no me levanté y otro me llegó a traer. Me levantó y me dio 3 patadas cuando me levantó.
In pain and in fear, Diego began to cry. Border Patrol loaded him and his other companions into a van.
Y todos estaban llorando porque dijeron que eso no nos había pasado si no fuera por la muchacha. Y por ti, me dijeron, porque me echaron la culpa a mí, porque cuando tiraron a la muchacha, La muchacha se asustó de mí, ahí donde se descubrió todo, porque yo estaba tirado ahí. Entonces me dijeron que yo tenía la culpa de todo.
Border Patrol brought the nervous captives to a detention center, where they awaited interrogation.
Y ese cuarto está bien frío, no hay, como dijera, no está caliente. Y estábamos mucho mojados. Y con ese frío que había, empezamos a temblar con el frío.
When questioned, Diego gave the false name and personal information he had fabricated in Guatemala, while the rest of the group gave in, revealing their true identities. With Diego looking on, the refugees who had given the correct information were allowed to call their families.
Entonces yo llegué cerca de una migración, yo le dije, lo que yo declaré, le dije, mi nombre que yo dije no es correcto. No, me dijo, tú quieres mentir otro nombre. No, le dije, yo tengo familia aquí. Yo quería hablar con mi familia, que ya me habían agarrado, porque mi familia también estaba triste por mí. Entonces yo quería platicar, que yo estaba bien, pero no me dieron el teléfono, dijeron que yo no podía platicar.
Soon after, Diego was moved to a center in another part of Texas where he awaited liberation and reunification with his father. Diego and Lola soon arrived in Massachusetts, disoriented by their new surroundings.
I didn't know where I was. I was lost, you know. In Mexico, I talk Spanish. Here, you know, I'm in a town where people speak a lot of Spanish, but still everything was new to me. I was like, Mom, there's cars. there's houses. Oh my God, there's people with actual shoes. We lived in the basement of my uncle's house. So to me that was even great, you know, because here I am, little, I don't know any English, I don't know anyone, because I didn't have friends. I didn't know anyone here. I was by myself and my parents, who were too busy trying to figure out how to get money.
Yo llegué aquí en este lugar y mi papá me dijo, ¿tú llegaste? Sí, le dije, yo ya vine. Bueno, me dijo, gracias a Dios, dijo, yo el deseo que tenía que tú estuvieras conmigo. Y bueno, dijo, tú tienes que estudiar, porque es el deseo que tenías, ¿no? Me dijo, tienes que estudiar. Y empecé a estudiar.
Economically, however, both Lola and Diego's families had not yet achieved the prosperity they dreamed of.
I was too little to notice those economically. I guess we were getting more money, but not enough yet. We lived in the bottom of my uncle's basement, this little room with one bed. But soon afterwards, we moved into a different house, to another house, and it had a living room and a kitchen and one bedroom, and I was like, this is heaven. So when we first came here, it started out really slow. No money. You know, my dad was working, my mom was working, but it was still really slow. Later on, as we moved, we got better at it.
The late Senator Ted Kennedy once said, "Immigration is the story of American history." Indeed, beginning with the Pilgrims' emigration in 1620, America has been viewed as the golden door to opportunity and has encouraged millions to settle in the romantic land where anything is possible. The greatest wave of immigration occurred between the 1890s and 1920, as documented in an instructional film produced by the United States in 1942. In this span of only 30 years, over 20 million immigrants streamed into the United States. Many were welcomed, continuing America's pattern of accepting Northern and Western European settlers. But the great majority came from Southern and Eastern Europe. From Poland, Italy, Russia, the Balkans, immigrants poured into the United States. Some came for economic opportunity, eager to leave behind the virtual serfdom that dominated Europe. Others came in pursuit of civil liberties, weary from the political oppression that dominated their home front. Still others followed in the footsteps of the English pilgrims and came to the United States to pursue their own religious freedom. The word America was quickly becoming synonymous with opportunity. Industrializing and modernizing as they went, the immigrants of the late 19th and early 20th century helped to create the country we have today. While this progress was most definitely testament to the benefits of immigration, the culture that evolved from such mass migration underscores its achievement. A culture of immigrants, the great melting pot in which each ethnic group retains their distinct cultural traditions, but blends harmoniously to create the variety that is America. A culture in which those who work hard, persevere, educate themselves, and contribute to society are the most patriotic. Ironically enough, Matt's ethnic history closely parallels that of Diego and Lola. At a recent birthday party, Matt gathered with his close family, now in its fourth generation in the United States, and reflected on his own roots.
So these are my Italian ancestors who immigrated to the United States sometime around the turn of the century. This is Albino Mera and Catherine Villano. They were from the Naples area, and then they came over. They moved to Brooklyn, New York. And on this page is my Irish ancestors, Michael James Regan and Elin Anderson. I do kind of feel like a special connection because I can say, I have the pictures right here. I can say that my great-grandfather, he was a painter in Brooklyn in 1909, so I think when I do learn about the golden age of immigration and the early 1900s, I do kind of feel cool to say that my family was a part of that, and I am descendant of that.
When they arrived, both Diego and Lola entered public school, eager to progress through the same renowned education system that immigrants assimilated into during the first Great Wave. Under the 1982 Supreme Court ruling Plyer v. Doe, all children in the United States, regardless of status, are permitted to attend public schools in grades K through 12.
When I started school, I was terrified. I didn't know anything. All I knew was Spanish. Everyone spoke English. I was like, oh, okay. I even had to stay back a year because I didn't know English.
Diego, too, was afraid, but upon revealing that he was Guatemalan to his peers, he soon found friends. While Spanish still dictates Diego's learning, his close friend translates everything to ensure his success.
Y él me dice, mira, tenemos que hacer esto, la maestra nos dejó este tarea, tenemos que hacerlo, todo. Yo me empiezo a hacerlo, pero como yo no he entendido bien el inglés, entonces cuando yo tengo alguna pregunta, yo le pregunto a él. Y él me dice, ok, tú puedes preguntarme algo y yo lo puedo preguntar a la maestra.
Diego and Lola have rebounded from their previous difficulties. Both soon recognized that 40% of the U.S. undocumented population lives below the poverty line, a reality that increased education could erase.
I wanted to become someone. I wanted to help my family out. That's where I decided that I needed to get good grades because I want to help them in the future. I just started to work really hard, learn English, could do good in school. I love world history. That's my favorite.
And Lola has succeeded in school. 2 years ago, she was accepted into private high school, evidence of her potential. Diego too continues to study English in junior high, aware that language will unlock a multitude of doors for him. Despite this determination for, and their evident achievement of success, there are certain things that are out of Lola and Diego's control.
I'm very limited in school. I can't do anything that needs my social security number. Like, I wish I can get a scholarship, but I can't. My friends, when they try to get into the private high school that I'm in, they got scholarships. I had to pay that tuition with my money. And for my parents, it's hard because it's a lot of money. And I wish I could help them in some way with my grades, but at that point I can't. I can't do many things.
Y si alguien me pregunta que yo tengo papeles aquí, yo por el miedo, yo hay veces que le digo que yo sí tengo papeles aquí.
I don't drive. I feel like if I get pulled over, I'm gonna be back in Mexico in a month. So that's a bit difficult, and I try not to ask my parents to take me to too many places because you hear of those stories where they were driving the highway and next thing you know they're deported, you know? I go from school straight home and just stay there. I don't do much, I guess.
It is not just documents that hinder Diego and Lola.
I used to think America was my home. But as I grow older and I see this hate, this being called an alien, it kills. You feel like your home is being destroyed, or you're being turned against it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Because you live here, it feels like you belong as long as people don't know you're an immigrant.
The secrecy that Lola and Diego require to survive in this harsh reality is nothing new. There are currently over 2.5 million undocumented children in the United States, the majority of whom are here illegally by no fault of their own. Many were dragged here by their parents, or worse, were forced to follow in their parents' footsteps alone, hoping to reunite with them in the United States. There are sections of society who empathize with the plight of these children and work to secure rights for those who never intentionally or knowingly broke any law. One organization incredibly active in New England, the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition, or MIRA, works to shed light on the injustices that the undocumented face. They hold a symposium annually at the Massachusetts State House, inviting immigrants and guest speakers alike to speak and meet with state congressmen. There wasn't always a distinction between legal and illegal immigration. Before 1921, including the period of mass migration following 1890, immigrants only needed to purchase a voyage ticket in their home country to begin their passage. They soon arrived at immigration stations like Ellis Island, where while they could be deemed undesirable if they were illiterate, mentally challenged, or ill, they were never turned away if they didn't have papers. After entering, immigrants were free to safely begin planting roots in the United States and could begin the application process for citizenship at the same time. When the United States Congress believed the flow of immigrants had reached a breaking point in 1921, American leaders passed the Quota Act of 1921, soon amended by the Quota Act of 1924. The new laws created a filtering system, limiting the number of permissible immigrants per nationality to 3% of those currently residing in the United States of the same nationality. To enforce this quota system, Congress created the U.S. Border Patrol. Erasing all need for domestic immigration systems like Ellis Island, the U.S. sent officials abroad to perform the traditionally post-voyage entry procedures before the passengers even began their immigration to the United States. Thus, a system of entrance visas, the only documentation that would allow one to enter the country legally, was born, spawning the divide between the vilified undocumented and the landed class, whose undocumented ancestors had entered in the very same way. Many Americans don't realize the undocumented nature of their family's immigration. One woman working to establish and preserve immigrant rights is Zoila Gomez, a local lawyer who witnesses firsthand the families who are split apart by immigration officials.
Most people that come to the United States illegally is because they're poor, very poor in their countries. They come here to work, and what type of jobs do they do? Very low-paying jobs. So it creates social chaos no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that a lot of undocumented workers don't have a way to really climb the ladder. They get stuck into situations where employers are taking advantage of their status and paying them lower wages. They don't have any recourse in order to dispute labor disputes, and they're really put in a really bad situation.
I have a job. It's a restaurant. I've known the owner since I came here. If I didn't, I wouldn't be able to work, because when they give you the application, it says your social security number. If I didn't know him, I don't think I would have been able to get a job. Like, this is my only job option that I have. I can't go to Market Basket. I can't go to another restaurant. I can't do any other job that's not that. It doesn't get me a lot of money, but with whatever the check I get, it goes right to the bank, my parents, so it can help pay for the high school.
I mean, they wind up usually getting forced into lowest paid minimum wage jobs. Or they tend to become sort of burdens on society. They don't have anywhere to turn. Sometimes it can turn to crime. But most of these kids are good kids, and they're going to try to do the best that they can in the situation that they had and do it right. So their future is much bleaker.
In response to similar social and economic stratification, the American reformer Horace Mann once said that it is education that is the great equalizer. Since then, while the public school system has been reformed to allow for universal access, it is now a college degree that determines those who thrive and those who decline.
You really the college process, it started with figuring out what I wanted to do in college.
also went to Arizona, and I really wanted to apply there, like top choice. So then I began actually filling out my applications for like, okay, if I was selected for full length, I was freaking out. My dad wasn't there. Well, I mean, I guess he was, but he totally freaked me out. I got these couple of
Logically, college graduates with a bachelor's degree earn approximately 60% more than their high school graduate counterparts. With such potential for economic prosperity and demonstrated commitment to education by Lola and Diego, college would seem the natural solution to alleviate their plight. Yet only 5 to 10% of undocumented high school graduates continue on to college, condemning the most of the 65,000 undocumented high school seniors that graduate each year to a life of poverty and despair.
I want to go to college so I can get more money, so that in the long run I can give my parents what they deserve. You know, give them the thank you for helping me, thank you for taking care of me for all these years. You know.
While no federal or state law explicitly forbids colleges or universities from accepting undocumented students, there are a variety of roadblocks that prevent enrollment for undocumented teens. Firstly, many private colleges require proof of citizenship for application, documents these teens are unable to legally provide without admitting their illegal status. While these schools are not mandated to instate such a policy, the admission of undocumented students often wrongfully becomes synonymous with harboring and aiding illegals. As a result, many private schools avoid this negative publicity by simply refusing undocumented students. Those post-secondary institutions that do accept these long-time resident teens commonly register them as foreign students.
Foreign students have different rates. So if you're going to be accepted into a school as a foreign student, the rates that apply to you are very different than the rates that apply to, let's say, a resident of the state. And for you to prove that you're a resident of the state, you have to prove that you're a permanent resident or that you're a U.S. citizen.
Most commonly, students who cannot afford a private college education often look to state schools.
I know of a lot of kids over the past 4 years that I've spent at Ann Arbor High School. I know a lot of kids who have taken advantage of the in-state tuition to go to the various UMass schools, and that's definitely helped with their financial situation.
State schools would appear to be the ideal option for those undocumented teens who wish to educate themselves and contribute to society with a degree. Under Section 505 of the 1996 Illegal Immigration Reform and Responsibility Act, however, state schools that provide in-state tuition to foreign labeled undocumented students are mandated to also offer the in-state tuition rate to out-of-state residents, or face a cut in funding. As public colleges would lose a considerable amount of money with such a policy, the 1996 IIRAR Act scares most states into charging undocumented teens the out-of-state tuition price, nearly $44,000 more than their official state resident neighbors.
So even though you're a resident of the state, because you do reside in that state, right, you're not documented, you're not legal. So it's very hard.
Yeah, I mean, college is really expensive. It's incredibly expensive these days. And a few ways that people can kind of like battle that is you can look for merit-based scholarships or academic scholarships, state loans, loans directly from the school. You know, there are a few different ways that you can get some money to help pay for college.
Undocumented teens cannot receive any federal or state financial aid. They are also ineligible for most private scholarships, as most require the same standards as federal student aid programs. The inability to access in-state tuition, financial aid, or scholarships renders 90 to 95% of all undocumented teens unable to receive a college education.
Everybody wants to go to college. Everyone wants to go to those big private colleges, like everyone wants to go to, what's it called, BU or Holy Cross. And I'm just like, and they're like, what college do you want to go to? And I'm like, I don't know yet. I try to act dumb, I'll think about that next year. I don't need to worry about now. Like, I have very little possibilities while they have this whole world open to them. They can go to any college, basically, that they want.
Yo si era en el colegio, yo tenía la oportunidad más de estudiar, aprender el inglés y ya cuando yo ya voy a estudiar bien las cosas, todo cómo se hace, yo ya voy a tener como un futuro fácil que no me va a costar nada en la vida.
I wouldn't have to work in a McDonald's and earn like $8 an hour. I would be getting more. I could give my parents more for what they've given me my whole entire life, so yeah.
To make matters even worse, few even know that over 2.5 million undocumented children face the very same future as Diego and Lola. There are some, however, that have taken action. In 2001, again 2007, and again in 2009, Senator Rick Durbin and Senator Richard Lugar introduced the Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors Act, or the DREAM Act, a piece of legislation designed to offer undocumented teens a path to citizenship through an in-state priced education. If the DREAM Act is instated, undocumented students who entered the U.S. before the age of 16, at least 5 years before the bill's enactment, will be eligible. Upon receiving a U.S. high school diploma or a GED, and acceptance to a U.S. post-secondary educational institution, and upon being deemed to be in good moral character, for example, no arrests, no security threat, the students will be accepted into the DREAM program and will be awarded conditional permanent resident status, valid for 6 years. This presentation of status recognizes dedication to education and will encourage the undocumented population to stay in public school. Additionally, this new status will allow students to legally work, drive, and attend school without living in daily fear of discovery by U.S. immigration, a drastically new concept. Most importantly, however, the DREAM Act will repeal Section 505 of the 1996 IIRAR Act, allowing states the choice to offer in-state tuition to undocumented teens at their public institutions. Naturally, most states will embrace this opportunity, as the policy will inevitably yield more tuition revenue. In addition, the undocumented students that begin the DREAM program will be eligible to receive state financial aid and will be able to apply for federal loans, work-study programs, and private scholarships. Upon graduation from a 2-year college or upon completion of 2 years toward a 4-year degree program, the student's conditional status will be changed to lawful permanent resident status. These educated young adults will receive a green card, allowing them the opportunity to apply for full citizenship in 5 years' time.
Those brought here as children into America, undocumented, who have finished school with no criminal record and are willing to finish 2 years of college will have a chance to become legal in the United States of America.
Now, the rates that apply to you are the rates of all Massachusetts residents. Right. You have choices. You have choices of schools that you can go to, and as long as you're able to apply for the school, enter, and be admitted through a regular process, it will make it easier for people to go to school, for children to go to school, for young adults who are not documented.
How can it be more difficult year than ever to send a message to students who have graduated from our public high schools, who we have invested in, who we have supported, who have rose to the occasion, who have graduated, who have passed the MCAS, who have graduated our public high schools, sitting next to our students. What better a year to say to those students that we believe in you, we've invested in you, and we believe that you deserve the same in-state tuition rate as the students that you sat next to for 3 years in our own public high schools. If there was ever a year to say that it's important to reinvest in our young people, to reinvest in the economic future of this country and this Commonwealth, it's this year.
The DREAM Act has the potential to be universally beneficial. Those educated under the DREAM Act, who would otherwise hold menial labor positions or revert to crime to survive, will now enter the American workforce. The sheer increase in the number of educated workers alone is likely to yield an increase in the economy's productivity.
Now you guys can become more educated. You can now go out and help America more in different ways.
This educated workforce will potentially earn more, thereby decreasing public health and welfare expenditures and increasing income tax revenues. Additionally, many of these college-educated students will be bilingual and will have an in-depth knowledge of their native cultures, which will not only enrich the U.S. workforce, but will also decrease the need for dependence on foreign consultants and outsourcing.
Right now, there are companies in this country who have to hire foreign workers. Why is that? Because we don't have enough workers with the right education in this country. So we have tons of people in this country who want to go to school and can't. And in the meantime, we're hiring people from other countries.
Despite potential benefits, there are many who oppose the DREAM Act. Some argue that the increased number of college applicants will yield unwarranted competition that citizen teens, those who have committed no crime, will have to endure. Others claim that the DREAM Act will reward criminals who in their crossing violated U.S. law and continue to knowingly break the law by remaining here. These groups fear that this form of amnesty will encourage continued undocumented immigration, something the already overly burdened United States cannot endure.
You can now go out and help America more in different ways. But it's not, in no way are they saying, is it telling us that we can come here.
Proponents of the DREAM Act are determined not to lose hope. Awareness campaigns appear to be their concentration, hoping to spark support in those who feel closest to their immigration roots.
I think we need to come out. tell our stories.
Above all else, the DREAM Act has the potential to provide a path to prosperity to millions through an education.
If I had stayed there by now, I would have been married. I would have never had a chance to become someone. Everyone goes to school for the first 2 or 3 years. So I don't think I would have ever been able to do anything.
Education it's good for everybody. People who will benefit from the DREAM Act are people who actually want to go to school. People who have been here for a long time, who went to school here, who already speak the language, already have their ties in this country, most of whom feel Americans, even though they don't have the legal documents. And it will be just giving them the right tools for them to be able to accomplish an education, be able to accomplish a better life.
I think having more undocumented kids at the school would just create a more diverse ethnic population.
Yet, at the same time, some suggest that DREAM will provide redemption for both the students and for the United States.
This battle is going to be no different than a lot of other civil rights battles we have fought in this country. People will look back in 20, in 30, in 40 years and say, those folks were right.
Americans, they're nice. They're great until they know your status.
Cuando yo estaba en Guatemala, yo pensé si la gente de aquí era igual.
Some won't care, and some will just judge you and ask you to go back to your country, and that's when they turn that hatred on you.
She doesn't belong anywhere else in the world because she doesn't know any other world. Just because you were born somewhere doesn't mean that you belong there.
They don't care enough to get to know me or get to know my history.
It is clear that the sanctity and respect for the humble immigrants is quickly dissolving. Lola, Diego, and the millions just like them who naively came here without fear of retribution have the potential to save the United States. The DREAM Act has the potential to not only practice America's legendary compassion, but to also ensure its preservation.
You're immigrants. Even Americans now, you are immigrants. All we want to do is do what you did. Become a country with you guys. Not be hated and have you turn your backs on us.
Lo que yo pienso de los americanos, si uno es bueno con ellos, pues ellos también es bueno. Si tú te das a entender con ellos, ellos también. La gente de aquí son buenas.
I would like America to be my home.
It was immigrants who built this country. It will be immigrants who sustain us through these difficult economic times. And it is immigrants who have